was all, when it was done, it was like, God, this is as good as anything else that's out there.
And so back then, he was really brilliant.
If I only knew now what I knew back then.
Yeah. Does anything come to mind, Reggie? Does a song stand out? I mean, is it Low Life and the bass parts you brought to that, or?
One thing only that stands out is Bad Taste, only because Ed and I were working up in the garage one day, and I mean, the bass line I thought it didn't really go with what Ed was doing, but I could hear in my head what Frank was going to do. So Ed gave me the latitude. He goes, okay, let's just do it. And Frank came up with that drum beat.
I was thinking about Bobby Blue Bland, and he heard it on a whole nother rhythmical level.
But that was what was fun about it. I mean, that would bring the stuff, and if you had ideas, you could, we'd go through all the ideas. And it was a nice way to kind of figure out what your plan was about.
Fertile days of inspiration. I remember I was still writing Give Me a Rainbow at the beginning of a rehearsal when everybody's bringing their gear into the garage. I was at the piano writing the song, so very fertile.
So you mentioned Bad Taste, and I hear the bicycle horn when you mentioned Bad Taste.
You got your horn? Hearts and flowers. Don't you call me on my cell every hour on the hour. Your fool, that fool, say love is enough. I want a bad taste of your stuff. I don't need the thing that money can buy. Don't care about no home, sweet bye-bye. Romance, I'm so tired of love. I want a bad taste of your stuff. You can make me feel from my head to my toes when you bang my drum real loud and slow. Don't look for me when it's by the sun. Baby, I'll be gone. Just like Peter Gunn, talk about one night, hey, that paradise. I want a bad taste of your stuff.
Irregular routine.
So where did the rig come together with the bicycle horn and the bass drum? And
I don't know.
How did it
stuff just, stuff
I think
happened.
it came on its own.
But you don't travel with the bass drum anymore, huh?
No, the floor tom. It wasn't bass drum, the floor tom.
Excuse me.
No, it got busted, and then it got busted, and then it got busted. It got busted.
Apparently it got busted.
So I don't want to dwell on. Well, let's go back even a little bit further and how you guys knew one another, because you were playing in the Dogs, you were playing in Road Apple, you were playing.
I was in the Rhapsodize with Camille and Frank.
And we were in Road Apple.
Yeah, you were in Road Apple, but you'd had the Dogs before.
We had Dust Wolfie before Road Apple.
And that was what, 1970?
I think it was 1849. Somewhere around there. When was that battle? I was upriver. Down there.
We won't go back there. We'll move
We're not going that far back.
So 1980, you released this record, worked on a premises. You start your own record company. I mean, it's pretty ambitious for an independent band to come out with
the help of people like you.
A double live
album. By the way, y'all.
You have to understand that time frame. I mean, back then it was either disco or new wave music, and we didn't fit in any of that stuff. Plus,
I'm not sure about that.
Plus, we were doing original stuff, which a lot of people weren't ready for that either. And we figured if we're going to put a record out, we're going to have to do it ourselves. So that's what we did.
record companies weren't chasing us down.
Yeah.
But eventually they
There
did.
were things chasing us down, but it wasn't that.
But eventually record companies.
They came, well, they didn't chase us, but they at least called us up, so.
And so, what was your intention back then? I mean, it was a way different time. How important was it to you in the trajectory of a career to feel like, well, that was the path, that's what we need to do, we need to get a record deal?
Well, you know what? We had this connection with Tulane University for years and years. We should have never let that kind of drop, because when we were playing in the early days, people would ask, couldn't we tape your shows? Yeah, we don't care. We didn't know that we were setting some brilliant milestone thing. And then we'd go play somewhere for us, which was off the beaten path, even if it was New York. And we'd get there and people already knew our songs, and then we figured out later that kids that went to Tulane brought their tapes back to their brothers and sisters, and it spread all over the place.
Yeah, really was. The first big tour we went on, Rick Ornstein and Barney Kilpatrick, who were DJs at TUL, really, it was that Brainstorm, and I think we was in North Carolina or Virginia.
Duke University, I think.
Okay, maybe it was the first time that people were yelling.
Yeah.
Complete strangers were yelling at
For
us
songs
for
that
us
we
to
had
play
to
songs.
Yeah.
We'd never seen these people before.
Or since.
But that's the viral nature of this community, and I mean, in this day and age, who knows if it would really have gone down like that with the instantaneousness of.
Apparently, we invented this do-it-yourself thing, accidentally.
Well,
And the internet, we invented the internet.
But I mean, people had
We invented the internet too.
Yeah, people had cassette tapes. I mean, that's all there was at the time, cassette tapes. And they would ask, when are you going to come out with a record? And then, we did.
and so, why do you feel that connection with the Tulane students that happened from, the early '80s through?
Because people like you would do anything to not go to class. So you latched onto a bunch of derelicts like us, and we had way too much fun. But you probably don't remember that part of it.
I was told never ever to let schoolwork get in the way of my education.
No, but after a certain point, we were never here. We were on the road all the time. So that's, the logistical problem. Being in two places at once is really what it was.
So was there ever a thought about that? It's like, hey, do we spend more time on the road? Do we nurture more at home? Can we do both simultaneously?
We didn't have time to think. Stuff was happening.
But our
so fast
management at
that
the time really thought it was a bad idea to play in town too much, and I always maintained that was bull, that we could play more often and maintain our ties, specifically to Tulane.
Well, there was practical considerations that, after all, how many times can you call in sick to the phone company from New York?
Not enough, apparently. Fired from the phone company. In a New York hotel where they knew I was anyway. That was great.
What year was that?
Then we can extend the tour.
I was in 80, we extended the tour and I ran out of sick days. I would have been to 82, I guess. The first 2 or 3 years we didn't tour.
82, I think, was the first time we went up to...
We started going to
the first time was we were Earl King's backup band. And
we went to Texas too.
The band, Stevie Ray's then band, was on the bill too.
Cobras.
The club in...
It was
the 80s, on the 80s.
The 80s.
I know, but what's the name of the club?
The 80s.
The 80s.
Oh, I remember it well. And Earl King didn't show up, by the way. It was a Friday the 13th. He didn't bother to tell any of us.
He didn't fly on Friday.
But he wouldn't fly on Friday the 13th, so we're all in New York. Where's Earl? We found out the next day that he wouldn't. Anyway, we played the gig. I'm not sure the New Yorkers, I think they thought he was Earl King.
The whole audience were the people from Festival Productions who lived up in New York. It was all hometown and people we knew from jazz festivals.
Well, there was a whole other group of people that thought we were the Radiators, like this German punk band, and they were all mad. Then there was a guy who drove in from Connecticut who threatened to sue the club because Earl wasn't there. It was kind of screwed up.
So anyway, that was the beginning of the tour. And I had a regular
It was the summer
job
of '80.
and I got fired from that.
So you mentioned the folks from Festival Productions, the folks from Tulane University. You know, going back further, you guys have a long time friendship and relationship with Quint Davis, who is the executive director of the Jazz and Heritage Festival.
Mayor Lazard, give it up for Quint. And Quint had record listening parties when they were.
I turned Muddy Waters on to Quint Davis.
You turned, vice versa. I just found out the other day that he was the first person to ever play a Muddy Waters record for Quint Davis. I had no idea. That's pretty cool. Clap now.
Yeah, me and Quint did a lot of listening together back in the old days.
And then was there wine involved?
Yeah, well, because our throats would get so dry.
That's that other stuff.
That's crazy. Parch.
And so, how many years have you guys been closing, what do you call that, stage 1 over there?
The Paranoid stage.
I don't know, it's changed names. What was it? I don't remember what it was called.
Polaroid
It just
stage.
had numbers.
I thought it was stage 1.
Was that Polaroid?
Let's see, in 78 we got together. 79 we backed up Earl King.
No, 78 we backed up Earl.
The first year?
Yeah.
So 78 and 79 we backed up Earl. 1980 was the first Rads gig, but we didn't close a stage.
No.
And then it took about 3 years later we started closing whatever that stage over there was called.
I kept reminding Quint about Muddy Waters.
And you've had some Muddy Waters over there. Do you have any special memories of gigs of that closing that stage out? Any visuals come to mind? I get so many visuals.
The year that it rained and everybody, the mud people were like sliding in the mud up to the front of the stage. That was hysterical. I couldn't imagine how those people were going to get in their cars and go home.
Got in someone else's car and went home.
This has always got to be such a big day for you guys. Closing out that stage. There's a lot of moving parts on a day like today. Taking care of family and friends with tickets and situating backstage. I mean,
it's always been special. We've always been extremely honored to be able to do this. It's a big deal, and this is the best festival in the world.